feel like these cabinets are missing something. Let's change that. That's better. Now let's get into the build. When we originally designed the kitchen, we were planning on putting glass in those upper cabinets, potentially some sort of leaded glass, but then we came across this metal wire and thought it would work perfectly, as well as carry that gold color higher up into the kitchen. As you can see, there's a recess here so we can fit that wire into the cabinet. Alright, so here's the metal that we'll be using to install inside the cabinets. It's a 3x4 sheet, and I have everything marked out to make sure that we have it optimized, to make sure we have enough for all 14 cabinets. Unfortunately, in each of the corners, it is missing part of the metal, so I'm going to trim it back about 1 inch, and then we can get to cutting. I have some metal snips here, and I think that should be plenty strong enough to cut through this pretty small gauge metal. Let's get to it. Wow, it takes a lot of force to cut. The metal wire was actually a lot stronger than I was originally expecting. I thought I could cut through it kind of like scissors through paper, but that was definitely not the case. I had to take my time and cut each piece of wire individually, sometimes using 2 hands to apply enough force. Alright, so now that we have that cut, we can begin cutting the individual rectangles for each cabinet. Now they do vary in width, but they are all the same height, so we're first going to cut some rows at that exact height, which is 10 7/8. And I'll use the T-square to make sure I'm getting some straight cuts. I originally was using the T-square to mark out all of my measurements, however I actually found it easier in the end just to use a tape measure, mark it in one location, and then transfer that mark up and down the row. And I was a little bit disappointed to learn that when you do cut the wire in a corner and it's only held on by maybe one weld, that piece is almost always going to fall off, so that was a little bit unfortunate, but I just held on to those scraps and I could always glue them into the corners later once I mount them in the cabinets. So now I'm on my last piece, but it's only 3 7/8 wide. It's the narrowest of all the pieces. And I'm a little bit worried because when you cut this particular metal, the joints come apart pretty easily. And so this one might start coming apart as I try and cut it, so I'm gonna have to be careful here. But worst case scenario, I can kind of glue it back together once I put it in the cabinet. Let's see what happens. I made sure to be very careful with this particular cut, and luckily it actually turned out better than I expected. It actually turned out okay. Alright, so now we have all of our pieces cut and I have them laid out here. Now we can go ahead and dry fit them in all of the cabinets, and I'll come back with hot glue to secure them. Alright, so now we have all those pieces in place, however they're not fully secured, so we're going to go ahead and use some hot glue to do that, just probably putting a little dot in each corner. That should be all that it needs. This hot glue gun worked just fine, however an alternative that may be a bit faster is using a staple gun. However, you just got to be careful it doesn't blow through the front of the cabinet. Alright, as you can see, we have all of the metal wire installed in all the cabinets. However, there's one more thing I want to do. We have the upper cabinet lighting installed, which is really nice and handy to have that. However, it's a little bit of a harsh light, so we want to diffuse that in some way. The idea that I came up with is I'm going to be installing just some 1.5 inch strips. I'm going to be spraying these black, and then we'll install that in front of each light. And that will still allow the light to be diffused within the cabinet, but you won't really be able to see directly into the light just standing in this area. So let's get to it. I put on several coats of the spray paint, and I made sure not to paint the back of the boards as I wanted those to remain light in color and more reflective. There's a variety of ways on how to mount these boards into position. I opted for super glue, however it did take a while for it to set, so I had to hold it up there for some time. I think in the future I might buy some activator, which makes the glue set a lot faster. That's going to be a wrap on this week's build. Let me know what you guys think of the end result down in the comments. And if you enjoyed the video, please smash that like button, as it really helps the channel out. And for those of you that are new to the channel, we've been completely renovating this lake house and documenting each step along the way. And this kitchen looked quite different about a year ago. Next week, I'm going to show you guys a time lapse of the start to finish process of the kitchen renovation, going from what it looked like a year ago to what it looks like today. So if you want to see that, get subscribed and stay tuned. As always, I'll leave all of my tools linked down in the description, as well as where I found this metal wire. And as always, thanks for watching and happy building. See you next week.